Today I want to talk about 1D&D and some really questionable design decisions that seem to be at the core of it. In fact, these design decisions are so bad that even though I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for about 3 decades now, and just about every edition that's ever been made, I've played and enjoyed, I may give 1D&D a miss entirely. And what I'm talking about here is really summed up in a quote from Wizards of the Coast CEO and President Cynthia Williams. This is reported on dicebreaker.com. But the quote is, D&D has never been more popular, and we have really great fans and engagement, but the brand is really under-monetized. So there's going to be a real focus on trying to extract more money from D&D players going forward. This is concerning to me because I started out playing Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. And I didn't have a whole lot of money as a kid, but it's something that you could get into for the cost of, a book, some paper, some pencils, and some dice. That's about all you needed. It wasn't a huge outlay, and that was kind of important because I wasn't getting a big allowance, and certainly my parents weren't about to go and splurge money on this because this was in the middle of the whole satanic panic thing. People didn't really approve of this as a concept, but it really helped me out as a kid. It provided sort of some imagination, some social activity, all of these things. D&D can be a real positive in people's lives, and it certainly was in mine. And over the years, I've played with a lot of people who are, from very different backgrounds, some of whom had D&D as an escape or as an option because it was possible to get into without sort of splashing a whole lot of cash. That seems to be something that they're looking to change. And the way they're doing that is with this big focus on D&D Beyond. Now, one of the things they've been saying is, oh, look, it'll still be possible to play this as a pen and paper game. But I don't know that that's actually the case, because what they've said is that they are wanting to drop the idea of editions and instead kind of have this forever edition, that 1D&D is going to be the one edition that is just forever, it's perfect, and never has an update or never has a change. But of course, there are going to be updates. There's going to be rules corrections and rules changes. They've acknowledged that. And where will those go? Well, those will go on D&D Beyond. We've also seen that they seem to be looking to limit third-party content. They've said that they are going to be revamping their user agreements such that, it might not be as possible to make third-party supplements. They're really looking to bring all of that in-house, which of course further limits the ability of sort of the community at large to generate material for each other. One of the reasons why D&D is such an incredibly successful system is that I can go online and find adventures that have been written by random people, some of whom are really good at it. In fact, many of whom are better at it than Wizards of the Coast. There are new monsters. There's, all sorts of things out there. I'm personally working on a supplement about rogues as well as a campaign setting, and those might not be possible with these new sorts of restrictions. They've also sort of noted that they're going to have an online tabletop, which they're hoping is going to squash all of the other online tabletops out there, Foundry and Roll20 and so forth. Now, that's not a good thing. Competition in the market is a much better thing. And unfortunately, all of those other competitors are going to have a real hard time when the actual underlying IP is owned by Wizards of the Coast and they can say you can't use it in your games. And how is anyone else supposed to keep up with that kind of control? So we may see all of those other services kind of shrivel and die in favor of one that appears to be really focused on pushing microtransactions. And what I mean by microtransactions is they've got all of these virtual tokens for these things, and they've said, oh, you can customize them and you can, well, all of those things are going to cost money. I mean, this is really something that's designed to push you onto these online tabletops where they can then sell you, oh, if you want the fancy hair for your character, that's another 99 cents. If you want the potions on their belt, well, that's $1.99. And this kind of thing to just keep extracting money from you. Now, when I say keep extracting money from you, this is likely to disproportionately fall on one person at the table, and that one person is the dungeon master. Typically, the person, and the dungeon master is the person running the game. And in fact, dungeon masters currently have the lion's share of expenses in a game because the players, they buy a player's handbook and they're good. The dungeon master buys the dungeon master's guide, they buy the monster manual, they buy the adventures, they buy this, they buy that, they buy the other thing. And in fact, the CEO, Cynthia Williams, mentioned that dungeon masters comprise roughly 20% of the D&D player base, but they make up the largest share of our paying players. And they're looking at unlocking the type of recurrent spending you see in digital games, i.e., microtransactions. I mean, I'm not making this up. They've specifically said that they're looking for microtransactions. That's again from the dicebreaker.com article, which I'm linking below, so you can check that out and see what I'm talking about here. This is really concerning because when we think, that they've already sort of identified dungeon masters as sort of these cash cows. This is where the money is. And dungeon masters, of course, are going to also be the ones who have the expectation to buy all these tokens. If you want to have the players face off against a dragon, well, that dragon's now $8.99. And if you want it to be able to breathe fire, then that's another $3.99. If you want the dragon's horde in the corner, that's another $6. All of these things are going to add up, and a lot of these are going to be expenses on the dungeon master. So as much as you might say, well, let's play somewhere else, that forever edition idea for this means that all of the amendments that they make over time, usually for a game, they sort of are reluctant to make too many changes. They'll make errata, they'll say, oh, we screwed this up, and they'll put that out there. But typically they don't do a whole lot of rules retinkering. However, with 1D&D, they've said, you know what, we're going to continue to evolve the game. We're going to continue to sort of update the rules and change that. And all of that will be available on D&D Beyond. So even though you've got a paper, copy of the book, that may not be good enough because your paper copy might be obsolete by the time, it's sitting on shelves. Of course, this is also pretty bad if you happen to be, one of those old school friendly local game stores that, sells the paper version. I have real concerns about this. I have real concerns about what this is going to do to the game. And quite frankly, if this was the system from the outset, I don't think I'd have ever gotten into it. I don't think I would have ever been able to afford to step into this world. And as mentioned, I've gotten a lot out of Dungeons and Dragons and other role-playing games. Um, I I just don't know what to say. This is really heartbreaking in the sense that that it means a lot to me. But it means a lot to me that not just that I get to play Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I'm a guy with some income. I'm a guy with some disposable income. I can spend it on things. But I want to be able to play with the people I've played with. As mentioned, some of whom are, not people of means and would struggle to keep up here. We're going to end up with potentially real have and have not sort of scenarios where, if the players are buying their own tokens, you might have one character who's coming in looking really badass because they're able to afford all of those little, tweaks and so forth. Whereas the next guy is just kind of using bog standard dwarf number 17. And, you know, are they really having the same experience as the guy who's able to get all those things? What if they want to go into being a summoner character? Can they still do that if they can't buy all the tokens for the stuff that they might summon? I don't know. Quite frankly, D&D has been successful because it's under monetized. And when you try to over monetize or maximize your monetization of it, what you might see is a lot of player flight, people moving on to other games. And that, I think, is something that should concern them. It should be something that they factor into their design decisions here, but I don't think we're seeing it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to see more content. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Maybe I'm being a little overly panicky here, but this is really not a trend that I like, and I'm not the only person who's identified this. There's other commenters online, especially, give a sort of hat tip here to David at Prototopics, who commented on some of this and did so before I did. So yeah, I'm worried about the future of a game I love, and as usual, it's people just wanting to squeeze that last little bit of cash out of the golden goose. That's that's gonna do it. See you next time.